So, is the unlucky number Chris true for Aston Villa? The number 1 shirt, the goalkeeper main number. Let's have a look at 6 goalkeepers that in the last 10 years that have worn the shirt for Aston Villa and just dreadfully failed. Starting with Sam Johnstone, who is currently playing for West Brom. Now, despite the fact that he's trash everywhere, the first ever club he properly played for was Aston Villa in the Championship, and he was one of our first ever goalkeepers. And guess what number shirt he wore? That's right, number 1. And he was pretty dreadful. And the curse probably was that he went to our rivals West Brom, which isn't the worst one to start with, as Sam Johnstone went probably more of a hero than most of our other goalkeepers. But I'd still say this one is part of the curse, as he went on to play for West Brom. How about then Nemi Martinez? Now this one's the most interesting one. Last season the shopstopper was unstoppable. Emilio Martinez had a 77% save rate, which means he only conceded around 23% shots he faced. Now unfortunately this season those stats has completely switched around, and now it's probably 70% of the time the goals go in and only 30% of the time the ball is saved by the goalkeeper. Funnily enough, last season he was wearing the same number as he did at Arsenal, the number 26. He was kept out of that number 1 shirt last season by another player that we mentioned in this, who because he was injured. And this season Martinez was given the number 1 jersey and has ultimately failed to keep the ball out of the net on a lot of occasions this season. Considering it's his first time ever probably wearing a number 1 shirt, we might have to give him time to get used to it. But this is another interesting one that has killed a legend. And he's also made a few mistakes in the shirt as well, which probably doesn't give the number 1 a good name to it. And the next player is Guzan. Guzan, probably being one of the best players in this list, was a really hyped goalkeeper when he joined Aston Villa. He turned out to be another failure, as once again another goalkeeper that was coming to his end of his peak failed at Aston Villa. The tall goalkeeper came to Aston Villa with a lot of hype and a lot of pressure on his shoulders, and was expected to be their best player of the season, considering his height for a goalkeeper was exceptionally tall. However, he ended up ultimately failing in guess what number? The number 1. But he's probably not one of the worst ones in this, as there's a lot worse to come. But Guzan has to be up there as one of the worst goalkeepers we had, as it was around that time that we had our worst ever period as a club, namely the relegation to Championship battle. And the next player is also Shay Given. Shay Given is a very difficult keeper to judge. He used to play for Manchester City and he came for Aston Villa. Now the 2 times that he performed were probably in the FA Cup, when Aston Villa got to the final, and then from my guess he was the goalkeeper that was in goal for Arsenal as they lost 4-0 and he got the shirt number 1. Although this goalkeeper was a long time ago, like Guzan, he still will live long in the memory of the number 1s that were very, very bad. But I still don't think this one can be as bad as our next 2. But for Shay Given, oh, what a legend he could have been. He doesn't have the most memorable name, but Shay Given wore the number 1 shirt, and not surprisingly, we fluffed up in the final because we played our number 1. And it really did not pay off. And on to our next player, who was our very much well-deserved number 1 of this list, but there is still another one, but he is number 1 for the curse. Heaton. signed for Aston Villa on our return to the Premier League. He was expected to be okay and a leader on the pitch, as we hadn't got many Premier League quality players. And that he turned out to be. Despite our defence conceding the most goals that season, Tom Heaton picked up an injury in January against his former club Burnley, which I'm assuming was probably just written in the stars to happen, or it was just on purpose. The former Burnley and Manchester United man took the number 1 shirt and led the line for Aston Villa, but still conceded a hell lot of goals, and it topped it off when he got injured. Now that mentioned in Nemi Martinez, he left Aston Villa this season to go back to Manchester United, sitting on the bench, probably not even that, probably in the reserves room, ready for retirement. But I've got to say, that is bad luck getting injured on your first season against your former club. I'll tell you what, that is one heck of bad luck given by Burnley. Dear oh dear. And our final player, Orlan Nyland. By the photo might be confusing, because at the time in the Premier League, he was wearing the 25 shirt. But if everyone remembers the season we got promoted, he wore the number 1 shirt. Despite the fact he also had injury problems, he was probably Aston Villa's worst ever goalkeeper in their history. Listen, there's no doubt in this goalkeeper that there's a lot of mistakes in him. Pretty much why Villa fans were probably throwing up every time he conceded a goal. After 5 seconds, thinking it's going to be 9-0. This goalkeeper was completely useless, and in the Championship he was no better. But I'm still saying, because he wore the number 1 shirt, got injured, was awful in the Championship while wearing the number 1 shirt, I'm pretty sure that curse went into his 25 shirt as well. Which is probably another number as well. None of our 25s do well either. Yes, Robin Olsen, I feel your pain. Yes, Morgan Sanson, we also feel your pain. But for Orlan Nyland, he created probably the upcoming of mistakes to happen at the club, and sadly he will end the list 2nd place for the worst goalkeeper we've ever seen. And it probably could have been 9-0 every game had Orlan Nyland not had his defence in front of him. And if I would have said this quite a lot of times, if Pepe Reina had taken the number 1 shirt, or if Jed Steer had taken the number 1 shirt, or if Robin Olsen had taken the number 1 shirt, they would be up there as well.